Okay.
I'd say you can go ahead, Alberto. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Beth. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Alberto Lopez. I'm from the University of Puerto Rico, Mayagüez campus on the western side of the island. And I'll be your moderator for today's international panel. This is one of two international panels, whose title is Sharing Effective Practices for Infrastructure, Training and Collaboration. So this is the emphasis on the Americas. On Friday, I believe, right, Beth, is going to be the emphasis on Asia. The moderator there will be Cynthia Ebinger. Okay,
that's correct. And it'll be really early for Africa and Asia to be more convenient.
That's right. Okay, so I'm going to share my my screen with a slide that I have prepared to serve as a introduction. Okay, everybody can see my my screen. Excellent. Okay, so I already have given you the title of the international panel. I welcome you, everyone. It's a pleasure to be hosting this this international panel. Obviously, would have been better if everybody would be in the same room, just collaborating and sharing and meeting other people that for a long time we haven't seen, especially for these types of meeting, Engage and Sage meeting. So let's just start by looking at this some details about this panel. The thing is that this panel is the product of an event that was prepared by the International Development Seismology Committee. And the IDSC is one of several IRIS committees. And this one in particular seeks to interface IRIS NSF scientific mission with the community's desire to ensure that scientific progress enables socially important outcomes. And some of the goals of this committee are to develop partnerships, technical infrastructure, and human capacity required for effective international cooperation, and also seeks to accelerate scientific progress through the collaboration with technologically equal partners and as an essential element of various other modes of US foreign engagement. So this is some of the information taken from the website of the committee that you can see down there below on the right hand side of the end of the slide. There's a link that gives more information about the IDSC. So this committee seeks two main synergistic goals. These are to aggressively promote strategies that support fundamental research and exploration through wide and reliable geographic coverage, and contribute to reducing global population exposure to seismic hazard through broad education of scientific and technical principles that impact on societal resilience through increased awareness, preparedness, and accountability. So it is very important to note here that there's a star there right next to seismology, and since Gage and Sage are two becoming one, it's important to note that it's not only seismology. So these also including now the Gage part. But before we begin our panel, we have to think about the different aspects of our work dealing with seismology and geologies and the crustal deformation on our planet, and the devastation of Saturday's event in Haiti. after 11 years of a very devastating earthquake, they all again have the same situation, and it's very unfortunate. So I would really like to spend 30 seconds, like a moment of silence for our colleagues here in the in Haiti. Very well. Let's hope that that number doesn't go any further up, and the tropical storm that is right now in the Caribbean will not affect them, the recovery and the efforts. So since the objectives of the IDSC are to foster that collaboration, the training, and making, developing international relationships with different scientists from different parts of the world, particularly in this case for the Americas, we came with this idea of developing this panel with emphasis on the Americas. As you can see from the description of the panel, the goals are to engage a broad cross-section of participants from the international geodesy, seismology, and geophysics community, and a cross-section of US-based participants who are interested in international partnerships. Want to provide a forum for international-based researchers to share their thoughts on strategies for fruitful collaborations, particularly among scientists from countries with different levels of resources. We want this panel also to provide an opportunity for open discussion among community members about ideas and ways that we can move forward, including, or is very important for our panelists to cover, the potential pitfalls that could happen when establishing relationships and collaborations among different countries, and avoiding, very important, to avoid unequal collaborations. And finally, but not least, is the overview resources available for international collaboration support, particularly those for scientists and students from countries with limited science infrastructure. And of course, we have placed these goals here, but not necessarily we're going to stick to them, but all the things that can stem from them. It is very important. And one of the things that we would like to see developed in the discussion is that not only these goals that we want to discuss here, is that whenever we have a community that is interested in talking about these topics, that can bring their views and their perspectives on things that we haven't thought about in these goals that we discussed here. So before we begin, we would like to talk a little bit about Zoom etiquette. We are using Zoom. This is a platform that enables us to get all together, and we can see what the different presentations we're going to be, and later on with our questions and open discussion session. First, we would like to change our name. We don't essentially want to have 20 or 30 host people named host, so you can change your name accordingly. So that's one thing that you could do. We ask that you, if you're not going to be talking or addressing a question at the moment, that you mute yourself. That really helps us just to not be distracted by any of the other noises of the participants. If you can, then please keep background noises to a minimum. And also, if you have a cell phone, just to put it on to cancel the noise, I mean, mute it. It is always very best to use just headphones or microphones that will allow the noise to be somewhat limited, and we're going to be also better for the person who is talking. If this become a very large session, we'll just have to turn off the camera so we can save bandwidth. And you can turn on your camera during the open discussion or the question. If you want to address a question, we certainly would like to see your face. We're asking our question to our panelists, so we encourage that. So we want to have a minimum number of distractions. So please turn off notifications, closing or minimizing running applications, mute your smartphone, already said that, sorry. There's going to be a service of auto transcript, so it's closed captions. There's available on the Zoom toolbar. It's really helpful. And please use the chat box in the application, not on Zoom. So there's the virtual platform that we're using, the one from where you click join to the meeting. So there's a chat box there that is going to be used. The one on Zoom is not going to be used. So please be certain to use that other, the chat from the platform. So we have, since the emphasis on this panel is to talk about different areas so this is emphasis in the Americas, so it's very important for us to have people that are very knowledgeable of the area. And this is the very good part of the panel, yes, because we were very fortunate to have the presence of these very great scientists who are from the area, from the Caribbean or from Central America or from South America, to join us in this panel. And we are very fortunate, the IDSC is very fortunate to count with these excellent researchers. The format of the panel is that we will have these 5 panelists have their presentation. They're going to be providing very brief introductions and their presentations in order. And we will be taking questions once all of them have presented. So it's going to be one after the other. And then once the last one is done, then we will open for discussions and questions. So we will start with Ms. Catalina Yepes Estrada. She is a seismic risk modeler working with the Global Earthquake Model Foundation. Then we will address, so because she works with GEM Foundation, it's international work that she does. So she's going to be presenting this interest, the global interest, and how collaborations can be, or how they have done it in so far. So once Catalina presents, we're going to move with Richie Robertson. He is a volcanologist at the Seismic Research Center from the University of the West Indies in Trinidad and Tobago. And he is going to be presenting us his expertise on the Lesser Antilles and the Caribbean. Later, we will be moving to the Central America with Marino Proti, very well-known scientist internationally and a public figure in Costa Rica. And he works at the Observatorio Vulcanologico Sismológico de Costa Rica of SICORI. And then we'll move to South America, where Mario Ruiz, which is a geophysicist with the Geophysics Institute at the Escuela Nacional, Politécnica Nacional de Ecuador. And finally, we'll move to Hector Mora, also a very known scientist in Colombia, working with the Colombian Geological Service. And then we will wrap up and then start our discussion section. One thing is that all our panelists are fluent in English and Spanish. If any of our participants would like to make questions in Spanish, you can put them in the chat. We will certainly, almost certainly, as the moderator, will make the question in English, or our panelists can just read it and answer it. So without further ado, we would like to have our first speaker, Catalina Yepes Estrada from GEN Foundation. If you want to share your screen, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and you can start.
So good morning, everyone, and thank you, Alberto and the committee for inviting us to be here. I'm sharing now my screen, so please let me know when you can see it.
Perfect.
Okay. So as Alberto was saying, I'm representing here the Global Earthquake Model Foundation. And we are happy here to share our experience, our international collaboration. So I will briefly present the activities we do at GEM. One of the most known activities is the OpenQuake software. It's a tool for seismic hazard and earthquake risk assessment. We are the developers of the tool, and this has been a long process. The foundation is a non-profit foundation founded in 2010, and we have worked through several national and international projects. Here's a briefly summary of the places that we have worked on, or the organizations. And it's important for the ones that are joining today the panel to know that we work on seismic hazard and risk, which means we check two components of the study. The SAGE program is more focused on seismology, but today we are showing just two brief examples of what we do. Is the global earthquake model. So we have seismic hazard and we are collecting models. At the bottom of the slide, you can see that we have done a mosaic of models. So we collect models from other institutions or other scientists that have developed it, and they are now open in an open source software available for people, and you can go and visit more details. So we have here the seismic hazard model, and we also have work on the global risk model. By risk, now we intend to say what is the impact on population and infrastructure. So to do this, we have also to develop models, and they have been done in collaboration with several institutions around the globe. So we have exposure models that collect information about buildings and population and the consequences. The big map shows economic losses, or the small map here on the right shows the fatalities. And we have done this through several activities, several projects. Here is an example of the places we have worked on physical training. In some cases, our trainings for teaching how to use the software. In some others, how we develop models for specific regions. And all this collaboration has several sponsors around the globe that help us to build that. Today in the panel, we want to focus on one example. So today we are bringing the TREX project. TREX is an ongoing project funded by USAID, in which we do urban hazard and risk assessment, but we also have focused a lot on training and capacity building. This is an example of international collaboration. We have focused a lot of efforts on Latin America precisely. One point of change for us was the COVID situation that made us like evolve a lot. We were usually doing trainings in small regions, traveling to a given country or a given region, bringing people to the same place. This time with COVID, we couldn't do it. So we developed a website to do training on earthquake hazard and risk. Thanks to the sponsorship of USAID, this is all open. So it's free training for everyone that would like to attend. The website is there, it's in Spanish and English available. And now instead of training 50 people or 30 in a given location, we have trained more than 400 people, more than 140 cities, almost 60 countries. So the idea of example is we have extend, and this is like what we find like a good example of collaboration, how I can get improve or how can I train people at different regions through online services. For the panel, the organizers told us to focus on key questions. So now I'm going to the point because I have my last 2 minutes. And what are the challenges that we have found working in international collaborations? One is the cultural and geographical challenges. Everywhere, could be Latin America. Really, for all of you that would like to work there, Spanish is a plus. There is people that speak English is true, they can understand, but arriving to a given region with the language changes a lot. We also saw it, for example, in Central Asia with Russian, or in the Middle East with Arabic. So every time it's good to have that access to people, also to how people give you the feedback, how they like to communicate. It changes based if you can arrive closer to their culture. We also have found that it's better to approach on a long-term view. Sometimes projects are short-term, but the real collaboration is a long-term process. So try to build a team across the region that you would like to work on. So building long-term partnership, scientists will go for long period of time. The students will be the future people working on the institutions. I think that is a very valuable learning that we have had in the process. Also, we work a lot with governmental institutions, and it's very different to work with scientists that are doing, let's say, the PhD or the master thesis or the actual government. There are challenges for the government in terms of time, changes in organization. So if the mayor changes or your project has to change, while the students are very focused on a time frame for their study. Usually the projects we have found are relatively short in time compared with what you would like to achieve when the impact is long. So it's hard to arrange the timing of the projects. Also, when you have very big projects, the different groups might have different interests and different ways of working, different deadlines, which is good to be aware in advance on how to handle that from the managing perspective. Something that we have learned through time, we have been working in Latin America since 2010. Many local scientists or local stakeholders feel that sometimes big institutions or international researchers come to find data and go away, not leaving the know-how in the region. So it's good that in collaboration we all want to learn. Like people in the local cities or the studies, they have a lot of valuable knowledge that is worth listening and paying attention. And also you, if you know more, teaching how to do things. That is has worked a lot for us because people feel very comfortable working. And regarding like sorry that I finished before time. One key point is have an open and transparent communication with the teams. Like try to leave, at least our philosophy is leave things open. Your code, your analysis. keep fluid communication. Not only you come, bring the data, you do all the work, and then you present the results. That is like a very frequent feedback we have had, that they appreciate it when we communicate constantly and we involve, and we also help them or teach them how to do things, or we learn from them. That brings like knowledge sharing, capacity, trust of the work and the quality. And another important point is to work beyond a specific goal of the project. Think more in advance. The project might be ending, but it's more likely, like if you build a good project or a good team, you can keep finding additional projects. I think I will leave it up to here since I already passed my time, but we'll be happy and keen to hear the comments from everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Catalina. We certainly will have more time after the presentations to come back to these different topics or things that, key points that you have addressed here. So just leave them there in the air, and then or write them down, and then we can discuss a little bit more later on. Okay, so we move now to Richie. So Richie Robertson, if you want to.
Yeah, thank you very much, and good morning, everyone, and thanks to the organization for inviting us to take part. I don't have a presentation, so I'll speak to the issue. First of all, by way of introduction, the Seismic Research Center, which is part of the University of West Indies, a regional institution, we are the primary source of information for geohazards in the Anglophone or the English-speaking Eastern Caribbean. We are responsible for monitoring, research, providing warnings and outreach, and we do some limited postgraduate teaching as it relates to the hazards mainly focused on volcanoes and earthquakes in the English-speaking Eastern Caribbean. So the islands that extend from St. Kitts Nevis all the way down south to Trinidad and Tobago. And I think my focus would be more in terms of our experience, and I'll go through what I consider to be a checklist for good collaboration. But before I do that, I think one of the key things in terms of, and I'm looking at it more from the perspective of the organization that is within the Americas or within the region, and its perspective in terms of collaboration with either external or internal organizations. I think as an organization, first of all, if you're involved in collaboration, you need to, as an organization, own your mandate. You need to be as strong as you possibly can as an organization in terms of what you do. And I think in that regard, one of the things certainly in our experience we have done, we have worked closely with our stakeholders in the region in terms of building our linkages so that our status as the organization that they go to for geohazards information is emboldened and is solidified. And if you do that, then it means that when it comes to collaboration with external or internal agencies, you kind of have a stronger footing to stand on. So that's one thing. I think you have to build organizationally your own entity as strong as possible before you, or as well as looking at collaborations. In terms of collaboration, I'll go through a number of things which I consider to be, given our experience working in the region for over 50 years and collaborating with folks from within the region, from North America, South America, Europe, all over the world. Some of the things that we have seen as being important. I think my first thing would be to say that you need to engage, what I call engage fully with your potential partners from the beginning. So you have to engage your potential partners if you're coming from outside, from the beginning of the process. If you're thinking of developing a project, a research project, or some other collaborative project, you have to make sure that they engage from the beginning and not at the end before you actually get the funding. You need to, secondly, connect, establish good connections, good communications that you could sustain. it was spoken about long-term collaboration. I think to do that, you need to make sure they have good communications. You need to connect. You need to consult with your partners. You know, sometimes, as mentioned before, you have overseas partners come in, and as Catalina said, there's an assumption that, you know, they know certain things. You know, overseas partners often can benefit more from the project if they make sure that they have input and advice from the local persons, the local collaborators, or the people who are there actually applying the project or the activity in. You need to team up with people. You need to operate as on equal terms as a team, approach really true collaboration as equal collaborators, equal partners, rather than having a one-way street. You need to develop working relationships. My next point is that you need to agree. You need to define what the collaborative relationships is upfront. You know, what do each partner expect from the relationship? You know, often if those roles and of the role of the local institution, the partners is not clear from the beginning, problems, miscommunication can develop and problems can develop. Sixthly, you need to share. Catalina spoke about making sure the data is present. You need to, if you have a project, you need to make sure you donate, present, and leave a copy of the data results of any study once it's done. Ensure that there's a local repository for the work and the results that is done. That way, the chances of it having a greater impact, and in fact, you're having a more meaningful collaboration, I think is greater. So that's another key element. My other point is the respect, the issue of respect. You need to respect, again, Catalina mentioned it in a sense, that you need to respect the local culture, the local norms. You can't assume that you know what is best. You need to ask about approaches rather than make mistakes. Ask, you know, it goes with communication also, but you need to show a certain amount of respect for the entity or for the people or for the agency or for the grouping that you're working with. So if you're dealing with collaboration, you need to approach it from an issue, a perspective of respect also. Also, you need to link. I have a point about linkage. You need to look for synergies between your particular interests, the collaborating agencies' interests, and those of the local agencies. I think if you have a common interest, the chances of the collaboration being more meaningful, more longer term, and having greater impact is more. I mean, and it goes back to the whole issue of when you're developing programs, starting from the get-go with some level of collaboration from earlier on, rather than when you already have the project going. And I think my final point is the issue of exploring opportunities for cross-agency training, for visits of staff, or students, for people movement within the collaboration. That builds relationships also, but it also builds resilience. In building resilience in the interventions that you might have in terms of the collaboration can only properly be achieved if you train people who are in the place where the interventions are needed. You can't collaborate and get the data and do the project and then leave. You need to build the capacity locally. So in summary, I think you need to engage, you need to connect, you need to consult, you need to team up, you need to agree to what you're doing, you need to share information. You need to respect, have a certain amount of respect. You need to link things look for synergies, and you need to explore opportunities for going forward. I think those are the key things. I think if you have those kinds of operations, you know, if you start from making sure that organizationally you are as strong as possible, and making sure that you operate in that way, both from the external collaborators and the local agencies, I think it's more likely to have meaningful collaborations. There are lots of good examples of these kinds of things happening. In our region, in the Eastern Caribbean, we operate in a region which is prone by multiple hazards. We operate in a region which is low in resources, so that we are very interested in collaborating. And in fact, the agency that I work with, we have been able to do a lot of the work that we do and a lot of the development that we do through meaningful collaborations with others. So collaboration is important, is necessary to forward and advance certain things, but it needs to consider a number of these things, a number of those things that I mentioned. I think that's what I'll leave it at today. And I trust that in the discussion, we can get into other things. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Richie. Certainly having all those years of experience in the Eastern Caribbean will come handy later on in the discussion section. All right, so we move now to Marino. Marino, if you want to share your screen, go ahead.
I think Mourinho is muted. Can you unmute Mourinho? We're still not hearing you. It looks like you're muted. There we go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. So can you see the presentation? Okay,
Yes.
Good morning, everyone. I'm gonna be sharing our international experience. This presentation is based on GNSS, but everything for seismology works the same way for our experience. And it's been a very good experience. It's just a collection of opportunities taken. And so in geodesy, we can see how we started back in 1988, with just a few campaign sites. It was the beginning of GPS as a tool for plate movement. And now we're operating in Costa Rica a GNSS network of close to 100 stations, continuous stations, and with a spacing between 15 to 25 kilometers. So we have a very, very dense network, and that's the result of several international projects, but local funding, and also local funding. So we can go very quickly from what we started from that CASA campaign, where we first found that there was a potential for an earthquake in Nicoya. We refined later on in the 90s through campaigns that seismic potential all the way to anticipating the rupture area of an incoming earthquake. And all that was the evolution of different international collaborations with excellent results, I will say, to the point that we were able to build a network designed to capture a large earthquake in the near field. And we did back in 2012 with the Nicoya earthquake. We were able to produce GPS seismograms, to the point that just last month we had a 6.8 earthquake in almost about 100 kilometers south of Costa Rica, and we're able to produce seismograms for a 6.8 earthquake at over 60 kilometers distances. So these are examples of how we have been evolving through international cooperation and having products that benefit our country. Going to the point, the challenge we face now is that we have lots of data. We're collecting lots of data with both seismic and GNSS networks. But in GNSS, we have only 2 researchers. In seismology, we have like 4, so gathering a lot of data. So we're looking for scientific partners to process and interpret this data set. I will say that pretty much everything has worked for us through international cooperation. It has been a wonderful experience with every group we have worked. The personal relation is very, very important. And that's a key point that I want to emphasize at the last, in the next point, in which our suggestion for international cooperation is that we believe that for us it works better to share the data with colleagues on joint scientific initiatives rather than open up the database for everyone to use. And because we want to work with that data. And we don't want especially with the current network that we have been building and has been paid by the local people, we don't think it's fair to just open up the database and have everyone from anywhere in the world use the data, and local scientists don't benefit from that. And that's where the personal relation comes to. We build up this international cooperation through friendship. Everyone who has worked with us is a friend to us. And we got very close, and that builds transparency. We trust each other, and that's very important. And for both groups, and at the end, we'll have both groups will benefit. As resources we have for international cooperation, we can bring visiting scientists, and we can provide up to $1,500 for the ticket and some per diem. And we can also accept international students as internships, but we cannot provide any funding. We can give them a space to work, access to our database, and in some cases even per diem to go out to the field. But that's sort of what we have. And I want to focus on this part of transparency, and we can talk later on that. I just as a parenthesis, I recently finished a master's degree in foreign affairs and diplomacy, focus on science diplomacy. So I'm very interested. I'm a promoter of international cooperation, but on this transparent environment. And I think that's all. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Marino. Congratulations for that degree there. Let's see if in a couple of years you'll be running for president, huh?
No way.
Thanks a lot, Marino. So certainly we'll be hearing more of your work and all those collaborations on the helpful resources. It's a great idea that you have this program for welcoming both students and early career or other researchers into the observatory, which is very, very nice way to make new friends. Yeah. Okay, so let's move now to Mario Ruiz. If you can unmute yourself and share your screen. Thank you.
Yes. So welcome to. I would like to talk a little bit about the experience that we have in Ecuador with international cooperation. And I would like to share a presentation that I have. So if you please allow me to share my presentation, okay. Is this here? Yes. I think you, can you see my presentation? Okay. So in Ecuador, we have to deal with many natural phenomena like earthquakes, volcanoes, landslide, floods. But the Instituto Geofísico has the responsibility for study and monitoring the seismic and volcanic activity in the Ecuadorian territory, including the Galapagos Islands. Now, I wouldn't include the Galapagos Islands in this talk. No, and I will focus rather in the continental part. And in the continental part, we have had a very important seismic activity, like in the 40 occasions, we have the earthquakes have caused intensities larger than the 8. So with the heavy damage in the towns and cities. Now, some of them have destroyed completely cities and obligate to a new foundation of the city in another part of area. So also the earthquakes, we have large earthquakes as the 8.6 earthquake that occurred in 1906. No, so but also we have volcanoes, no, and we have even if Ecuador is a very small country in surface in area, no, there are 86 volcanic centers. No, from these 25 volcanic centers have Holocenic activity, and since 1998. No, the Instituto Geofísico faced the reactivation of Guagua Pichincha, Tungurahua, Cotopaxi, Reventador, and Sangay volcanoes. No, so we have had a very tough times dealing with this, with the monitoring of this activity. No, so in the map you will see all the volcanic centers, and here I just selected a picture of the Guagua Pichincha eruption taken from the capital city of Ecuador, from Quito. And this is the largest eruption that we have in the last 100 years, is the eruption of Reventador in 2002 with pyroclastic flows that ran down all the way up to cut a big road, and also the main oil pipelines from Ecuador. And the third one is the picture of the Tungurahua volcano with the lava flows in 2006. So with this reality, no, we have to look for resources in order to tackle our goals. No, and we think that the international cooperation will contribute with our goals that are to increase the infrastructure for monitoring and for research, to get a capacitation of our technical personnel with graduate students and technical and specific training in some cases, no, and to develop joint researcher projects. Now we think that probably this is the time to increase our knowledge of what is happening in order to establish better strategies for working or with our goals, that for one of the important goals that we have, that is reduce the impact of the natural phenomena in the society. So since with these ideas, no, the first from the very beginning, the Instituto Geofísico obtained the support of important agencies. For instance, the first national network was built with the support of the UNDRO program, the United States Disaster Reduction Office, and then the Organization of American States also supported us for establishing for enhancing the FIRS network. No, of course, these networks were short period instruments, and later we have the support of Japan and other agencies to increase our capacity. So now we have 112 seismic stations. Most of them are broadband stations. No, so here I listed some of the cooperations that we have had in the past in order to build our operational capacities. No, so the key point here will be that the international cooperation was essential for us, no, for Ecuador, in order to build our local capacities. However, no, if we establish a network, no, we have to also to think how to maintain the operational this network, no, and how to also analyze the data. No, it's not just installing equipment and then letting the data that in the computers. And also, we think that the international cooperation could foster the capacities of our personnel. No, so in some cases, when we are dealing with when we are discussing a cooperation program with another agency, we also try to include in some cases the capacitation point, no, how to improve the skills of our personnel, no, and probably most important, how to have the opportunity that our personnel could go and to fulfill the graduate students in universities of high prestige. No? So, and we have had the support of France, for instance, the Institute for Developing the Research and Developing of France, IRD, has supported in this part. So, but also we think that joint projects could offer the opportunity for talented students to get to catch the interest of faculty members of other universities, and also to enter to these universities for their graduate studies. So, and I think that it's also important for us, the international cooperation, in order to get new knowledge of the seismological and volcanological aspects in our country. So JICA has supported not only with increasing our infrastructure, but also we have worked with them for several years during three projects with them. And there was also we trespassed the only like infrastructure cooperation to sharing the data, to analyze the data, to learn how to process the data, in some ways. In the same way, I will say that the cooperation that the Institute has had with the Orstom, the former Orstom, and now it's the IRT, this is the French cooperation agency, has been very, very important. We have had some rapid National Science Foundation projects, for in some critical cases like the 2016 earthquake or the 2018 Sierra Negra. I will detail more about this point. So what I will say is that the crisis offer a very important opportunity to learn more about volcanoes or earthquakes. But we need the assistance of other countries with resources, with instruments, in order to cope the area with and to get the data that otherwise could be missed. So, but the problem is that during this time of crisis, we have to be very careful, because our responsibility is the monitoring. So we have to deal with the monitoring, but also with the opportunity to gain data for improving our knowledge. So to have disputes during this time, it will be a bad time. So I will say that this is the time to share. This is the time to cooperate. This is the time that we can learn more and win more, in our goals. So the Instituto Geofísico was very active in this. For instance, when we have in 1988 the first reactivation of Guagua Pichincha, now we have the support of the U.S. BIDAP team. So they came and we worked together. And the same for the Tungurahua and the Cotopaxi reactivations. We also had the support of the UNAM during the Reventador eruption. And we have had the support of, for instance, the IRT France, the Liverpool University, and the Arizona and Lehigh University and Colombia, the Servicio Geológico Colombiano during the 2018 earthquake in Ecuador. The same for the Sierra Negra eruption. So having different groups working at the same time, for us it was critical, but also we think that it was very important to organize the work, to assign different areas, and to at some point to share the data and also to share the research in order to accomplish better our goals. So this is an overview of the project that we had with JICA, for improving the capacities of monitoring Tungurahua and Cotopaxi volcano. Both of these volcanoes, after the eruption, after the installation of the equipment, in this time probably was one of the first volcanoes in Latin America with broadband and infrasound seismic stations. It was very important for us that the Tungurahua eruption got its peak just after the installation of this instrumentation, and also Cotopaxi erupted about 9 years after the installation of the network. No? So the data that we collected was very valuable, and I think that still we are analyzing this data. No? I think that that it's an important contribution to the knowledge. And then I said, no, with knowledge we can do better strategies for reduce the impact of this phenomenon. These are the points that I like to share with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mario. We really appreciate you're right now doing some campaigns and took time to participate in the panel. So we really appreciate that. Thank you, Mario. Very well. So let's move now to our last panelist, Hector Mora from the Colombian Geological Service. So if Mario, you can stop sharing your screen, and then I think.
It looks like you, oh, okay, there we go.
Yeah, he was he's in a hotel, so he was mentioning that his connection might be slow. So, but he made it. Okay, very good, excellent. So let's move now to Hector. So you can click on presentation, and then I'm sorry, click on opciones de presentación. And then I think you're muted, right? Okay. Excellent.
Okay,
Oops.
good morning. Are you watching the?
Okay, so I think you have to do it again. Opciones de presentación. There you go.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Good evening, good morning, everyone. First of all, many thanks to the organizers for inviting me to participate in this panel. Previous speakers have mentioned several things that are common between us. However, I want to share with you some ideas from our experience of several years in space geodesy at the Geological Survey in Colombia. I will probably mention only a few of them due to time constraints, but I think that they should be considered for further discussions. After many years of data collection under the modality of campaigns and field stations under the CASA project that was already mentioned by Marino, we continue expanding the network. I consider taking a step forward by deploying a network of permanent stations. And today, that is the main challenge. That is not only being the implementation of the network of permanent stations, but also to be able to guarantee the operation of the equipment, of the geodetic equipment, and overcome the problems in the transmission of the data, a problem that still persists in some of the stations. This is a very important issue to take in account. It has also been important to indicate how to the users how to use the data in an appropriate way. And they need to have a stable station that allow the use of the data for different purposes. It's very important that we need to permanently strengthen our capabilities in data processing and keep update to date with new developments and applications. I believe that in many cases, the true meaning and scope of the concept of geodesy has not been understood as support for many developments and applications to date. Is not being given its proper value. Our main achievement has been the implementation of a national network of geodetic stations for geodynamic purpose. It's about 150 stations today. After several years of proposing this idea, it was possible to obtain the project approval and to be funded in 2007. There are also about 70 additional stations for volcano monitoring too. In this matter, I want to highlight the cooperation of government institutions and also private companies in Colombia, and also being able to share data with neighboring countries such as Ecuador with the Geophysical Institute that was already mentioned by Mario. Starting in INSAR processing has been very positive for us, and the experience of participating in the Coconut project was very also important for us. Very important the support that we received from NAPCO and also from WINSAR, and also the collaboration from JICA has been very useful, and from SIGAL, University of Iberia Interior of Portugal. I believe that international collaboration should be based on several components, like close relationship with local researchers from the moment of the conception of the idea that a project can be generated. For example, small projects of an exploratory condition can be generated, things that can visualize the mechanism of articulation, the results of which allow generating large-scale projects. Create a space for the dissemination of knowledge with an emphasis on scientific applications of geodesy that allow local researchers to learn and generate new knowledge from their work to understand the phenomena of the Colombian territory. I think that it could be something like an international school of geodesy. The main question that always arises is how to use the data in more and more applications. For this reason, technology transfer is extremely important, especially since the technology associated with the space geodesy changes very fast, and new applications are constantly emerging. We would like to be part of this process. I believe that it's important to take into account the capacities that have been built in some groups and countries to facilitate the expansion of international cooperation. For that situation, generate co-investigation projects based on close collaboration is very important. So we want to emphasize that it's very important to know the different levels that geodesy is for everyone, everywhere. Thanks. Those are my ideas that I want to share with you in order to promote the discussions, probably to get more information for all the audience and how to work together in very close collaboration, how we can get more advanced in using in the more appropriate way the GPS data, and we are saying GNS data, but the question is how to use the different data from the different constellation in our applications. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Hector, sorry. Okay, so before we move on to the open discussions, I wanted to present okay, so Hector, you can stop sharing your screen.
I'm sorry.
Okay, I could do that.
You did?
Yeah, I think I'm sharing mine. So
okay,
let me know if that's not.
Yes.
Okay, so So this is part of the part of the things that we asked our panelists to include in this for this event. It was to generate a list of different resources. This presentation is available at the event site. You can download some of the files there, and it certainly shows very important information that can really help, for example, students or early careers, or people that are just interested in making these new collaborations with different areas. So you can just, I'm not going to go over them, so you can just watch them on your own. So we have some of these our international collaborations, professional development, resources for research, hazard, and teaching or students. So just go over them, and if you're interested in having some more information about them. So we really would like to look at these resources that are available. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and now we can just go ahead and start making some questions from the participants. If you are interested in making a question, we would certainly love you to see you. If you're not, then that's okay. But you can. We have this format that it allows you to speak up. You can unmute yourself and make the question. In the chat from the platform, we have several comments. Maybe Beth, would you like to just read them or address them to the person?
Certainly. So starting with a question from Cindy Ebinger for Catalina and all the other panel. USAID recognizes earthquake hazards in funding TREC. Has this opened dialogues within countries in terms of prioritizing natural hazards for USAID or peer funding?
Okay, let's start with Catalina, if you want to address the question. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know, I think it's a very specific question more for USAID. They do prioritize based on the hazard of the countries, but I wouldn't say that I don't know like the answer precisely of how are they tackling like specific hazards for every country. But at least what I can say is USAID is very supportive for different type of hazards, and that their main goal is to have an impact on population. So it's good when you, let's say, if you would like to apply for a project, try to think on something that has some impact on the population that involves government, something like related.
Okay, thanks, Catalina. Does any other panelists would like to add some to that question?
Yeah, I would like to add that, especially for those in Latin America, USAID has a regional office in San Jose, Costa Rica. Used to be the Office of Foreign Disaster Assistance. They changed the name, but they still do the same thing, and they provide some funding for even some research projects. We just we're running an early warning system based on cell phones funded by USAID. So this is one of the an example of the things that they can fund.
Now, these things do they cross boundaries, for example, to other neighboring countries, or it's just for the country that applies for it?
This is a specific project or the office in
that particular...
the office is a regional office. They serve to all Latin American and Caribbean countries, and they like to fund projects that go across boundaries too.
So for example, if you would like to have this project expand toward the northern and southern boundaries, it would have been possible just to collaborate with other countries.
Yeah, initially that wasn't the goal for this specific country. It's based on cell phones, using a cell phone provider that is local. And so the cell phones are pasted on the walls or on the floor. They're just there. They don't work as telephones. They just are used as for the MEMS and the GPS and the comms.
All right, excellent. Okay, any other panelists would like to say anything, add to that?
I'm not a panelist, but I could add just quickly to that, since at least 3 of our panelists I know are currently working on partially GEM funded work, partially USGS funded work, and then the TREX project that Catalina was talking about is exclusively funded through USAID BHA, although it does also have a separate component that's funded by USGS that is aligned with the project that Catalina was explaining. And so there's 2 separate funding mechanisms. USAID's Bureau for Humanitarian Assistance, which used to be OFDA, funds projects directly. And so they're funding, for example, the Global Earthquake Model Foundation projects. There's also the Earthquake Disaster Assistance Team, which is an activity that is a collaboration between the U.S. Agency for International Development and the U.S. Geological Survey. And so that funds the work in Costa Rica on cell phone-based earthquake early warning. They have some work in Ecuador, kind of helping with monitoring and data processing. I believe Mario could speak more to that if you're interested. And I believe there's one other project that I was thinking of that's being touched on today, but I'll put a link in the chat so you can see an overview of all of the current projects in case you're interested. Thanks.
There is also VDAP.
Yeah.
Volcano Disaster Assistance.
Yeah.
Exactly. So VDAP, the Volcano Disaster Assistance Program, EDAT, the Earthquake Disaster Assistance Team, and LDAT, the Landslide Disaster Assistance Team. Those are 3 different activities that are all a combination of USAID BHA and US Geological Survey. So they kind of draw scientists to work with counterparts in other countries. And so I'll put the 3 links for those in the chat. So in case anyone is interested in looking up further information. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Lindsay. And Lindsay, thanks for bringing this up. She's part of the IDSC committee. Really appreciate that, Lindsay. Thanks a lot.
Alberto,
Thank you.
We have received a permanent cooperation through the United States Geological Survey of the VDAP, especially for volcano monitoring. It's permanently done. We are working together in that case.
Excellent,
So
great.
another question from Maureen Long is that Catalina makes many excellent points on her challenge slide. Interested in how 2 of the points, projects and grants are often short-term. Projects and grants are often short-term, and teams sometimes want the data but don't want to share know-how. How does this intersect if there's limited time and resources? What are the best strategies for and activities to share the know-how, workshops, training, mentoring students, even after the project funds run out? So I guess, limited project, desire for long-term and now in capacity transfer, how to best to do it. I think Maureen, jump in if I didn't translate that correctly.
Yeah. So I think that also matches with what Richie Robertson was saying, that you should first communicate with the teams before the project. So you already know what is the availability of your partners, if you are aware that you have limited time. So the person or people that will be working on it could design and interact, like very close communication with the other scientists that you want to transfer. For example, in our case, has worked very well doing Zoom meetings now that we are in remote. Sometimes before we used to say, okay, I will go for 1 week training session or training week in a given country or a region. But actually in that week you do a lot, but then stop the communication for a while. So our recommendation will be, if you have short time or even not short time, keep a fluid communication. You can have shared repositories. We now, in the last years, we try to work on common repositories, share the code, have periodic meetings, like exchanging experience, showing how we are perhaps treating the data or having the results of the model. It depends, because it might be that your counterparts are not interested in giving details. They just want the outputs and not the process. But I think what has worked very well is close communication.
Yeah, thanks, Catalina. Any other panelists would like to add a little bit to that?
Yes, Richie Robertson here. I think Catalina said it quite well. I think to lay out what happens beforehand is key. But even if you haven't, I think in this day and age of the use of the virtual environment to do all kinds of things, given what we've gone through, I think there's really no reason why you can't, even if you didn't have any additional funding to physically go or share the data or to share the information, that you can't organize some session virtually, that you could still do quite a bit of work in that regard. But really, it really is key that you set up how the collaboration is going to work from the beginning, and you ensure that it's clear what each party expects from it. And also that you share any reports or any data that you have as soon as you can. Of course, people have to publish and want to publish. Even the publications you could share also, copies of the paper, because people in these parts, we don't necessarily are able to subscribe to some of the journals that that these things are published in. So all of that, there are lots of things that can be done, especially in this new environment, which we have learned to use the virtual world a lot more. We're much more comfortable in using it than when we used to. There's lots of things that can be done.
Thank you, Richie. Catalina, want to say something else? Add?
Yeah, I would like. I think in the question was something about how to promote or maybe engage for longer term views of collaboration. And I think if you know your partners, the other collaborators, so for example, that Richard works in local hazards for the Antilles. So you already understand what are the common topics of interest. So when you build a real collaboration, you know that at any time you can come to this organization, because that is a very good point that was mentioned before. Be strong on what you do. So if you know that a given team is very good on volcanoes in the region, so you will go there and you know that the team there is working for long term. So you start interacting for this project, then for the next one, then for the next one. In case it's university or researchers, professors have given topics of interest, so you invest on learning what they are, their preferences. And then it goes beyond a given project or a given budget, because if you have a common interest, later you continue some collaboration and projects will come to work on those topics.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay.
A comment from Jerry Carter at IRIS is to Mourinho. The international data repositories, like if you were to choose to use them, I think, and to everybody, this comment, they can restrict the use of data to specific people, for a few years. If that's a solution, that would be helpful to, to not have completely open access immediately. So just a comment from Jerry. Cindy said, Mario, thank you for pointing out specific challenges of rapid response efforts, which involve multinational groups who themselves need to establish collaborative data sharing agreements with each other. So again, I guess a comment. Susan, Dr. Yepes, among other points, you made the point that motivation needs to extend beyond economic benefits. Could you elaborate on that? And if one party is interested in scientific understanding, the other is interested in economic benefit, is this a no-go for collaboration?
I wouldn't say it's a no-go. It's something that, if the other party is only interested in economic benefit, you will exchange what you need for that specific research. But when I put that bullet point on the slide, I was thinking we have had the experience of inviting people to collaborate. We have some funds, we try to build, but they are just like with the minimum effort to reach the minimum of a project. And if you are in a scientific collaboration, genuinely the goal is not just to get the money and let's keep going. You want to learn about your topic. You want to understand what is happening with either with earthquakes or volcanoes. You want to improve the conditions. So if you see that the other part or the other collaborator, their main goal are the economic benefits, so perhaps they will exchange some data or they will do their part, but it's not something that will be long-term, because it's not easy to have a fluid cash flow all the time. It's not that is common. And we are talking, for example, here in the panel on Latin America. So we have to face, in many cases, people would like to learn, but they don't have the resources, or the resources just come with some time. You have to do agreements, some bureaucratic things that take time. So I would say if you are facing a partner that goes only for the economic benefit, evaluate if it's worth it to continue in that way. But it's something we have to face.
Thanks, Catalina. So I think we have another question there on the chat, Beth.
From Annie. Thank you all for fantastic presentations. For all the panelists, with COVID travel restrictions, what are your recommendations for maintaining good relationships and, if possible, continuing the work collaboration remotely? And how do we work respectfully on determining when our local collaborators might feel comfortable with travel and international visitors? So related to COVID.
Okay, so who would like to go first?
Yeah, I can make a comment that COVID was a big impact for many groups, but I don't think it was for our group. I mean, even the seismological community, and the systems are set up that data is transferred in real time to the observatories. Processing can be done from home through VPNs to the servers. So pretty much everything has been working in spite of COVID, and the relationships between scientists international has been kept through email, through international conferences, to Zoom chats. And so I don't really think there was a major impact. I know there were projects ready to go out in the field and install instruments, and that was delayed and in some cases was canceled. But for most of the cases, I think there wasn't a large impact, and that's sort of my own opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would like also to add something. The COVID impacted severely in Ecuador, and the Institute of Geophysics reduced its activities. And some of the stations were we had problems with some stations, but now we have in a very, very strong program for vaccinating people. So all the staff members of the Instituto is now vaccinated. So we have reestablished our duties. And for instance, right now, I had a problem with the internet connection because I'm in a field campaign. We are working with colleagues from 2 universities of United States, and we are installing stations in the field. Of course, we have to be very careful, even if we are vaccinated. But I think that we can follow some protocols and we can continue our work. So the problem, the earthquake in Haiti teach us that the earthquakes won't stop, even if we have. And the problem will be that, for instance, to have an earthquake and don't have the resources to provide the information to the community and the people who will manage a crisis. No, so we are very conscious of this part, and we said that we have to follow the protocols and try to continue our work.
Well, Annie, I think that we are going to be able to start thinking how to start working together. We have started in Colombia right now, going to the field in order to do some maintenance of the station. There are some areas that we have still some restrictions, but following all the protocols, I think that is possible to do something. We are recovering already some stations. So in short time, we are going to be all the time on the field.
Yeah, my quick comment on that, Alberto, is to go along with some of what Mourinho and Mario said. I mean, I think it did affect, and it has affected some of the operations that we had, certainly in terms of the maintenance of stations. And as you know, we had to manage a volcanic eruption in between that, and we are physically based on different islands, so we had to deal with travel and isolation and all of that. But in terms of the question that was asked, I think maintaining communications is possible. And if you maintain good communications, that's how you maintain the good relations. And you really have to be guided by the partners locally in terms of when they are comfortable for you to travel. Again, using my example, if anything, the COVID situation helped and also hindered how we managed the volcanic eruption. It helped in the sense that, to a certain extent, it prevented us from having to deal with the possible inundation of our operations by interested parties too much. So, you know, it limited travel. So we were able to manage that better. So, but then it meant that we had to put information outside to the people who were interested much more. And we had to put more emphasis in getting that information out. It hindered us in terms of how much we could respond to certain things and interact with the people. So, but the key thing, I think, in all of that was the communication, maintaining the communication with the collaborators, with the population. So I think you were able to do that throughout COVID. It's just that you had to put more effort in making that communication work. And I think if you do that, and you listen to what your collaborators are saying in terms of physical movement of people and how comfortable they are, I think the collaboration could be strengthened and in fact well maintained throughout.
Yes, if I'm allowed, I don't know if the time is, I would like also to share our experience on TREX Project. We were in the kickoff meeting on March last year, which was exactly the time where COVID was putting us all on test. And thanks to communication, we were in Ecuador, was the only city where we managed to do a physical visit since the project started. So I will say, first, you open the communication. So for example, our partners in Dominican Republic told us, please don't come, it's dangerous. So they were comfortable to tell us, don't come. And we had decided not to continue visits. Now things are opening, but with COVID, you never know. Then something else could appear. So also be flexible. Maybe you will have to cancel your trip on December. So yes, I agree that communication can keep going. The online tools have improved a lot. All of them in the last year have also improved the technical resources we have for calls. But to be honest, I also have to say, we see the difference and that the physical meeting or knowing people have in the project, and we have seen it in Ecuador. The engagement is completely different compared with other parts because you manage to know people, and that physical contact, the meeting the person face to face, it has an effect. You can overcome, you can continue working, but it's good to build it.
Yeah, there's no comparison to that. It's impossible. There's nothing can make it easier than the interaction, personal interaction. It's never the same thing. And certainly in these times, if this thing would have happened 20 or 30 years ago, the communications would have been greatly impacted. So this is a kind of a good thing that we have so much infrastructure now to continue getting in touch. There's still some places in the world that do not have it, so it makes an impact some places. And I guess GEM Foundation is based in Italy. So you live in Italy, and Italy was really bad. The news that we received from Italy during the COVID were pretty bad. So I guess it must have been very difficult. So I think we have something additional. I think it was a comment, Beth, from Susan. What's a great suggestion about suggesting or nominating people, researchers from other parts of the world, not only in Latin America but also in Asia, where the international panel is coming up at the end of the week. So it's a very nice suggestion from Susan. Thank you very much. So we're at 12:30, so we have run out of time. I really would like to go over some closing remarks for the panelists. If you can be brief. I mean, maybe repeating ourselves, or maybe look at saying what the most important things are that you consider. I really have the question here. It was kind of a difficult question for everyone, but we ran out of time, so we will not make it. Just leave it like that. Okay, so who would like to make this kind of closing remarks for the panel? Let's see. Nobody wants to say anything?
Well, I think we've said it all to a certain extent. I'll just jump in and say that to me, what comes across quite quickly is the issue of communication and how important that is. Communication both before, during, and throughout the process. And communication physically is much better, but any kind of communication is better than none. And if you really have communication between partners that are considered equal, and you really acknowledge the knowledge that exists in the collaboration that you have in both parties, if you deal with it respectfully, I think once you maintain that, you could have all kinds of collaborations. And we do need collaboration. Certainly in our part of the world, we need collaborators from outside because some of the advances we like to make, we don't have the resources to do it internally ourselves. So we are thankful for the collaboration, but we operate from a position where we think that the agenda has to be to a large extent driven by what we are interested in. As well as what you are interested in too, but really our agenda is what drives what we get involved in. And I think if you come from that perspective and you really genuinely are interested in communication, it should go a long way. So I think to me, a lot of what comes out in this is the issue of communication. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Richie.
Yeah, I also want to emphasize on three issues that are very important in international cooperation. One is transparency, trust, and friendship. And these three things is what makes a good results in any international cooperation.
Yeah, and I wanted to add that because one thing that we mentioned here is unequal collaboration, and we want that to be two-way in all of the aspects, full two-way communication and two-way road. And this is something that many people from Latin America are taken aback because of the collaborations, and that's because sometimes people just go in, put the station, put the equipment, get the data, goes out, write the paper, and then no collaboration from the locals. So this is something that once you establish that friendship, it's going to be open, and I think that's kind of a key aspect there. So anybody else? Catalina, closing remarks here?
Yes, no, I think I agree with the point that you have just mentioned. Communication should be transparent. You should trust and you should learn from each other. And we are also on pro of sharing knowledge and data, both. That will bring, if more people know about the topic, next project will be even better. we don't have to repeat what others have done before.
Excellent, thank you. Hector?
I think that most of the things aren't being said, but that is basically the same thing that we are talking from a long time ago. That is the collaboration, how to manage the data, the recognition for the local researchers, for the local people, and how to work in a closer way for the research projects. I think that this is the main things, Alberto. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hector. And now finally, Mario.
Yes, I think that for us, the international collaboration is essential. No, I think that we benefit for constructing or building capacities, and also to we learn new techniques and we obtain good data, and we are very interested in results. No, so the Instituto Geofísico and Ecuador, I think, is open for future collaborations, and I think that is a good place for working. And we have interesting volcanoes and very interesting also tectonic activity, seismic activity. So I invite everybody to come and work with us. That I think that you will be glad at the end. Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, all of the panelists. It has been an immense pleasure to have you to talk a little bit about all of this. It's too bad that time is always a constraint. But we would like to also mention that we have all the slides from the panelists, introductory slide and the resources slides in the page from the platform. I really appreciate everyone participating here. I'm glad that it was very useful and helpful for people, as I have seen in the chat from the platform. I do see also a comment from Enrique, so very, very thoughtful of that too. We will be discussing, as Cindy also commented on the chat, that we at the committee will take a look and talk about that. So I think that's everything for us now. Once again, Beth, you want to say something? Yeah.
I just wanted to say thank you on behalf of UNAVCO and IRIS for coming, everybody. And the main workshop starts tomorrow. There is one more session today for anyone who's a first-time attendee who'd like to learn more about the platform. Tomorrow, at the same time that this session is when the first community session in plenary is. And then, as has been mentioned, there's another international panel Friday morning. I believe it's 4 hours earlier than this one, so that it's more convenient for people in Africa and Asia. But I still urge everyone in the Americas who's interested in potential collaborations in the Eastern Hemisphere to consider getting up early and joining that one as well. Thank you very much, and thank you, Alberto, and all the panelists.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.